Tatyova Benthic Druid versus Selvala Heart of the Wilds. Yeah, I need to build her because she's a really powerful commander. I'm sure some of you would like to see that. Let's keep because we've got plenty of mana. Pretty slow hand, but we can go in for a Wood Elves on turn 3. Yeah, and luckily our opponent hasn't gotten off to a lightning fast start either, so let's get a breeding pool. Always worrying on turn 1 when you see your opponent playing, and you just have to keep your fingers crossed that you don't see Mana Crypt into Mana Vault, into Sol Ring, into Signet, into whatever it is that they can get out after that. Does mean they empty their hand, but they can play into whatever they top deck into, unless they just so happen to have some kind of card advantage in hand as well. Which has happened plenty of times to me in the past. A Nature's Law from my opponent. So we can see Selvala next turn, I think. But I don't know if they'll play it or not, because they want to see big creatures in this deck, so they might forego Selvala. We just draw into a land, so let's go. We'll see if our opponent wants to play around counter magic. We might be able to postpone something good coming into play here. No, they just go for a cultivate, so they were probably always going to do that. Royal Elemental. Yeah, that's pretty good. Let's get some ramp going. We'll go Flooded Grove. And then we can go for our commander next turn. Throw down a Dryad Arbor, just to get the summoning sickness off of that. Worst case scenario, it gets blown up. But we can still go for Crystal Vein into our commander next turn, even if it does. And there is our opponent's commander, followed by Omnath. So they're not drawing cards yet, but they are going to be able to hold on to a lot of mana with Omnath in play. We could actually just go for Consecrated Sphinx here, couldn't we? And then maybe Royal Elemental and drop a land next turn. I know we're foregoing our commander, but yeah, getting a lot of card draw with Consecrated Sphinx, actually. Yeah, I really like that. And then we draw a card with Selvala as well. So we're going to have 8 cards in hand by next turn. We'll just leave the Wood Elves back. So if our opponent wants to draw a bunch of cards with their commander, they best think twice about it. We get into Burgeoning, which is good with a bunch of lands in hand. I assume our opponent isn't about to start missing land drops. Tapping down a bunch of green mana. Buffing their Omnath, but then looks like they're maybe going to cast something. 11 mana in their pool at the moment. They could tap this down and get a bunch of damage through with Omnath, but I don't think that's the best use of their mana. Alright, a Tooth and Nail. Let's see if they go for a 1-card combo here. Alright, not quite a 2-card combo, but they are going to give their Kozilek haste here with Annihilator Force, so that's pretty much us done, isn't it? They draw a card from both of those creatures entering as well, I think. We'll draw 2 more with the Consecrated Sphinx. We don't have anywhere near as much mana as our opponent because we haven't really gotten into any ramp apart from the Wood Elves this game. Kept a pretty slow hand. Don't think we're going to be making our way up to a Royal Elemental either. So it's Annihilator 4. We'll get rid of these. And then take the hit for 12. And it's just a land. Let's see. Let's just have a look with Brainstorm for the fun of it. But I'm about to concede here, I think. That's interesting. Sort of Temptation. If we had a few more lands out, which we might have had enough lands out actually, had we have not cracked the Crystal Vein. I don't know. If we had another land or 2 out, we could have gone for Sower of Temptation and stolen that away, but not to worry, we can't do that now. Tech Edge gone, and a land gone. And we'll go for that. grab the tropical island, go for burgeoning, and that's us done, I think. Yeah, kept a slow hand against the very powerful Selvala, which, well, it's my own fault really. Can't say I was expecting a turn 5 Eldrazi, but that's what these green decks tend to do, just ramp into Eldrazi. It's not what I think I will be doing with Selvala, but something along those lines of ramping really quickly and getting out big scary creatures and enchantments and stuff. So you'll have to let me know if you're all interested in that. That was a quick one, as these first early games tend to be in the videos, so let's see if we can get a real game on the go. Oh, I think I've just played this player, Tatyova Benthic Druid versus Braids Conjurer Adept. It wasn't on this video, it was with another commander, but played this player with the same deck during the same recording session, I think. Well, we've got turn 2 ramp. No, I don't really like that, to be honest. Well, Jace the Mind Sculptor, Wood Elves on turn 3. This is exactly what we did last game. We just have to wait for a turn 3 Wood Elves, and it's not necessarily fast enough, so we'll mulligan yet again. And being punished yet again for mulliganing. Let's get rid of the dig through time and the Nissa Vital Force, as much as it pains me. We might be able to cobble something together here if we get into another land, but I am not hopeful. But at the same time, if our opponent gets Braids down, oh well, there's a land, so maybe we will be lucky this game. Yeah, with our opponent getting their commander down, we'll be able to drop Consecrated Sphinx and Prime Time, so I'm sure that'll be a nice surprise for them. Rex Sage from our opponent. Let's try and get down a 3 visits. Didn't see much counter magic from my opponent last game, but that's not to say they don't run it. And that gets through pretty easily, so we'll go for the tap land and pass. We'll see if our opponent gets into some kind of enchantment or artifact here. They might just go in for their commander with a Crystal Vein in play. Well, I think they're going for it. They've cracked the Crystal Vein. And they certainly are. They might have free counter magic in hand. This actually isn't cast, is it? No, you just put it into play. Alright, well, our opponent's about to have their day ruined. I think we have to just accelerate way past them because they decided to crack their Crystal Vein, so they're even further behind now. Not only because we've got the Primeval Titan, but because they got rid of one of their own lands. Let's get a fetch land into the graveyard. And we'll just go Field of the Dead as well because it's a tap land. And then Azusa, I think... Yeah, I don't think we need Azusa yet, so let's just ramp a little bit more with a Thought Vessel. Then we'll see what our opponent's got. Might be that they have an Eldrazi. Tend to see them a lot in 1v1. If they've got an Eldrazi into Lightning Greaves, they do have the mana for a Lightning Greaves, then that wouldn't be too good for us. Okay, it is a Quicksilver Amulet, which they cannot put the mana into, so I think their hand is not too good here, unfortunately. But they did roll the dice when they cracked their Crystal Vein. And they do have a land to make at least. So now we'll go for the Consecrated Sphinx. I've never actually looked into how you build Braids. I think it might be that your opponents cheat their good stuff into play and then you steal it away from them with different blue type effects. That seems like the way to build Braids to me, but I'm coming at it as a complete novice. Going for Prime Time again, we'll start triggering Tatyova and Field of the Dead. Grab ourselves a Gaia's Cradle and a Vesuva. Vesuva comes down as Field of the Dead, and that triggers Tatyova twice, which draws us a card and gains us a life twice. Now then, we're on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different land names. Could have triggered Field of the Dead there if I'd not gone for the Vesuva, but I don't think we're really too desperate to go for the zombie tokens just yet. We'll get it next turn when we go in for the Reflecting Pool. Then our opponent going for Cycling on their turn. They'll draw a card and we'll draw 2. Consecrated Sphinx is really good if you weren't aware. Now this is during the upkeep, so unless they drew into something good last turn, or they might have drawn into something with the desert as well. What is that? Oh, Slyn Voda, the Rising Deep. This is a new one, isn't it? Or fairly new. Enters the battlefield if it was kicked, which it wasn't, so it's just an 8/8. And then our opponent draws during their draw step. We make use of the Consecrated Sphinx again. And we're getting into a bunch of lands. Going to start making use of Azusa now, I think. And Field of the Dead, and our Tatyova. Our opponent's playing it out, though. So they're clearly not out of it yet. Let's get landfall again here. Go for a tropical island and trigger Tatyova. And there's a burgeoning. I think we're going to be able to get all of our stuff out this turn, but yeah, we'll just cheat out the Azusa. Alright, and we've got a Lightning Greaves of our own, so we go Reflecting Pool. Trigger both of our Field of the Deads and our Commander. And a bunch of zombies coming into play with a Gaia's Cradle on the field is really, really good. We've got 2 more land drops if we want them. We've also got the Wayward Sawtooth for more landfall if we want. I think we're going to Wasteland the Mystic Sanctuary because I'm worried about what our opponent might do. They're all about cheating stuff into play. So let's get rid of that. And they don't even bother to float it for mana, so perhaps shouldn't be too worried about what they might want to do. We'll play out the Burgeoning. Go for Lightning Greaves. Play another land for more Field of the Dead and Tatyovas. Then we've got Acidic Slime. Yeah, we could put our opponent out of his misery here. Let's drop Wayward Swordtooth so that we can play another land. And it will add more mana with the Gaia's Cradle as well. Okay, now we've got a land to make with Flooded Grove and the Burgeoning, assuming our opponent drops a land. Next turn, let's go Wood Elves, get even more lands into play. And we'll just go for a forest. And you know what happens when we drop a land. Now we've got Birds of Paradise, let's go for Acidic Slime. And we'll get rid of an opponent's land. I don't mind doing that here because we've obviously pretty much won the game here. I don't like to count my chickens before they've hatched, but I think I'm fairly confident in saying that we've won this one. And we'll go Rexage and get rid of the Quicksilver Amulet. Then Harrow as well. Get rid of the forest. And this can get us 2 islands. We don't have any basic islands yet. And this way we can pretty safely hold up 2 basic islands for that mana drain. And now we've got plenty of lands to make on our opponent's turn. Let's just go for the Birds of Paradise and we can hold up Chord of Calling as well. Put that onto the Tatyova. And we'll just swing in with the Prime Time. Our opponent can block it, but we don't really care at this point. We're after going wide on our opponent. And if they block and kill that, they can't steal it away with any blue shenanigans. So we'll go Reliquary Tower there. And Waterlogged Grove. Alright, and we've got more counter magic. So let's just get down the Ramunap so that we can make use of Azusa and Ramunap's little combination together. Oh, not during the attack phase, we won't. Allow our opponent to block here. Kudos to them for playing it out, but it may be that they've actually got something for all of this. I'm not very well versed in Braids and what it's capable of. Although I think I've played against it before. They do block the Titan. Now we'll go in for Ramunap, and that will be us for the turn. Because Ramunap and Azusa go really well together when you've got fetches in the graveyard. And they go even better together for you spiky players when there is a wasteland in play. They cheat out. Return each creature an opponent controls with toughness X or less to its owner's hand, where X is the number of islands you control. Yep, so they had an answer for all those zombies. And we couldn't counter there because of the ability. But we can rebuild there pretty quickly. I mean, that was on our turn 5. So there's nothing to stop us doing all that again. We've got a cartload of mana. We're already going to be making zombies again here. Let's just drop the Hinterland Harbour. Actually, in response to that, could have gone for Avenger of Zendikar. Oh no, we couldn't because... Yeah, we couldn't because it would have gotten bounced anyway. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... Yeah, I'm not going to bother going for Chord of Calling. Let's just cheat an Acidic Slime into play. We'll get rid of our opponent's blue mana. Our opponent's just playing this out for the fun of it at this point, I imagine. And they decide to float the blue this time. Don't imagine they'll make much use of it during the upkeep. Oh, and I accidentally passed through the... I accidentally passed through the phase there. We've got a flyer, so let's just swing in with that. Yeah, we're setting up for next turn anyway, so let's just swing in there. We've got an unlimited hand size thanks to Reliquary Tower, and then we'll have to make sure not to pass through the main phase again. Right, so let's try this again. Get Azusa into play. We can counter any of our opponent's counter magic. We'll get the exploration down, so that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lands we can make this turn. So we'll wasteland on that Buried Ruin first of all. No, actually, before we start doing this, let's get down the Rampaging Baloths. Now we can start making a bunch of landfall. Missed out on a 4/4 beast there. Get rid of that Buried Ruin. Then we go Misty Rainforest. Misty Rainforest gives us 2 landfall triggers. And yeah, our opponent decides to call it a day there. All we're doing is setting up for next turn, getting a bunch of tokens into play and going wide on them. Clearly they had nothing left in hand that they could bounce everything back with. But we got to show off what you can do with Tatyova there. And I dare say, got some help from Braids there, a lot of help. We didn't actually have the greatest of opening hands. You saw how far down we had to mulligan, but because our opponent went for that early Braids when they perhaps shouldn't have done, I mean, in all fairness to them, they didn't know we had Primeval Titan and a Consecrated Sphinx in hand. Probably 2 of the worst cards that they could have played against us with in the opening hand with that Tatyova deck, but yeah, like I say, it's not like our opponent knew that. So a big thank you to them for playing it out. I'm sure that was obnoxious for them to play against. And I hope that you all enjoyed it. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.